Well, hello to the First Baptist family and to the Friends of First Baptist Tulsa. This is our 321 for March 2nd, 2022. Three things I want you to know, two chapters in the Bible I would invite you to read with me, and one way I would encourage you to pray this next week. Okay, so I'm going to focus on three things for March since we're at the beginning of a month here, and actually today is Ash Wednesday. And you can still be a part of our Ash Wednesday worship gatherings. We had one this morning at 7 a.m., we're having one at noon, and then one at 5 o'clock. It's just a very short but very profound time of repentance and receiving of ashes. You can do that if you want to, and you also don't have to receive the ashes. You can just come for that time of worship. But this begins our season of repentance as we move toward the season or toward the celebration of Easter here in just a little over 40 days. And so I invite you to that. That's today on Ash Wednesday. Second thing, on March 12th is going to be our first day of helping rebuild a home for an Afghan family. Just give you some quick context here. Trinity Woods, formerly Methodist Manor, they have a few houses that adjoin their property that they own. Now eventually they are going to tear down these homes and they're going to be using them for other purposes or using that area for other purposes. But these homes are sitting empty right now, and there are Afghan families in our community that need a place to live. And so they've asked churches to help sponsor specific homes. We're going to step in, do some renovation, do some restoration to that house, and for the next several years, that home will be able to house an Afghan family. And so you can sign up online. If you have the gift of swinging a hammer, or you just have a gift of carrying a load of lumber from one place to another, we could use your help. On every skill level, if you have a great heart, we could use your hands on this project. And so that's March 12th. You can sign up online to be a part of that, and our friend Steve Jordan is heading up that project. And then the last thing is, for the month of March, we are collecting athletic shoes, men, women, and children for our caring center, especially as we look forward to summertime. This is something that's always in high need. And so if you have a lightly used pair of athletic shoes that you're not going to use, or you want to buy a new pair, bring them. We'll be able to use those for those who come into our Caring Center ministry. So the two chapters I would invite you to read this week, and we're getting into the weeds now here of Exodus. It's Exodus 23 and 24. And the reason I'm asking you to read these two chapters this week is really for a couple of reasons. Number one, chapter 23, you start to get into the law beyond the Ten Commandments that we know. And there's some really good stuff in here about not taking bribes and being a person of integrity. But one of the reasons I want to ask you to read Exodus 23 is down in verse 19. It says this: "Do not cook a young goat in its mother's milk." Okay, so this is an example of what you're going to experience so much in the Bible. You read a command like that, and you have no idea what it means. You have no idea where that comes from, or how that could possibly apply to people back then or even to our lives today. So let me give you an illustration. Do you know it's still illegal in Kentucky to carry an ice cream cone in your back pocket? That is a law that's on the book in Kentucky. And you see a law like that and you go, well, that is ridiculous, until you understand the context of the law. Back in the day, before automobiles, transportation, you needed horses to do that. And there were some very crafty horse thieves that learned if they put a sugar cone in their back pocket and walked in front of a horse, that horse was going to want to go after that sugar cone. And so a person could steal a horse just by putting a sugar cone in his back pocket. He could walk off, that horse would follow him, and he could claim innocence. I wasn't stealing the horse, I was just taking a walk down the road. They were stealing, but they were doing it without putting their hands on the horse. It's because of an ingenious horse thief that law came to pass. So once you understand the context, then you understand, and all of a sudden the law makes sense. Now, it's dated, but it still makes sense. So when we come to a command like this, and there are many of them in the Older Testament, what we lack is the context. We don't know, because it's been over 3,000 years, we don't know what gave rise to this command. It could be that in the Canaanite culture that the Jews would step into, to cook a goat in its mother's milk was a form of divination, that it was kind of like reading tea leaves, that this would a procedure would be done and a person would be able to predict the future. Could be, we don't know. It could be that this is just cruel. To cook a goat in its mother's milk, something that was intended to give life would be used to cause its death. There might just be an element of cruelty here. The thing is, we read some of these commands and we go, well, this is why the Bible's just, why it's hard to read it and it's hard to understand. Well, it is. But if we understood the context, and I think to own and to understand that we don't always know that context. So what do? We trust God when we don't completely understand. I have my theory about this. I think this is just a command against cruelty. Don't be cruel. Don't take something that's meant to be life-giving and use it to bring about death. I think it's just something very simple like that, but it takes us some thinking in order to do that. I also want you, as you read chapter 24, notice as Moses communes with God, a couple of things happen here. And this is a very unusual scene in which Moses and the elders of Israel actually go up on Mount Sinai and they feast with God. They're in the presence of God as they're eating, and it's a very mystical picture here. And then God is noticed to be on the mountain in the form of a cloud and fire. This is God manifesting himself. It's an epiphany of God. So the reason I'm encouraging you to read chapter 24 is, as you read it, think about the New Testament. That maybe this is not as unusual as we think, because you and I are invited all the time to feast with God, especially as we take communion, which we will take communion this next Sunday. And we're invited to see God on the mountain, but not Mount Sinai. We see God on Mount Calvary, on Jesus Christ and the crucifixion and the resurrection. You see, this is the covenant of the law. What we have is something even better. It's the covenant of grace. But still, we pick up on these pictures of feasting with God and being in his presence and seeing him reveal himself on the mountain, specifically in the death, in the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So here's one thing I would ask you to pray for this week. Sunday morning, we commissioned a team to go to Poland. Ostensibly, that team is going there to work at a pastor's conference, to encourage pastors, to nourish them, to give some life back into them. Because many pastors in Poland, they are over a church all by themselves, and so there's the need of encouragement. Now, that's what we had planned when the trip was put on the books. But with the Ukrainian crisis going on right now, there are a lot of Ukrainian refugees that are crossing the border into Poland, and so we've commissioned our team to be very, very flexible. And they may go there and serve pastors. They may end up serving refugees. I thank God that he has put representatives from our church at the crossroads of this, just at this right time. We could not have planned this. And so would you pray for that team? I believe we sent out a team of 7 on Sunday. Would you pray that they would be effective? They would share the hope of Jesus Christ, and they would share the gospel with everyone that they come into contact with. Thank you so much for praying for them, and may the Lord bless you this week. See you soon. Bye-bye.